Welcome to the Social Bee Podcast with your host, Louise Brogan. Every week, Louise will be bringing you a podcast all about women entrepreneurs, talking about their challenges, their goals, and inspiring you to either start your own business or grow the business you have. Visit www.socialbeeni.com to join our community and pick up some lovely freebies to start marketing your business online today.
Hello and welcome to the Social Bee Podcast, episode 49. So in this week's episode, I'm doing something a little bit different, and I am sharing with you a recording that I did with KathyEnnis. Kathy had invited me into her club, the JFDI club on Facebook, and she wanted me to tell her all about how I started podcasting. So I thought that actually you would quite like to hear it too. So without further ado, I will hand over to the recording of KathyEnnis and Louise Brogan talking about how to get started in podcasting and all about my journey so far. Hope you enjoy it, guys, and see you next week for episode 50.
Good morning, everybody. KathyEnnis here, and welcome to this session in the JFDI Club, where I'm really happy to be able to talk this morning to Louise Brogan. I'm not going to tell you anything about Louise. I'm going to pass over to her so that she can tell you everything about herself. So good morning, Louise, and thanks very much for joining us here today.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Louise Brogan, and my business is called Social Beeni. It's been going about 5 years, and I help entrepreneurs, small business owners and professionals to raise their visibility online. What that looks like is helping them with email marketing, blogging, a lot of social media, and really pulling it all together in a system rather than just focusing on something like Facebook or Instagram to build your business or raise your profile. It's much better to have an overall system for doing that. And I also have a podcast called the Social Bee Podcast, where I have a mixture of calls on there, but I have podcast episodes where I interview women entrepreneurs who've left corporate to start their own business. I have some solo episodes and I have some on-air coaching calls. And I think that's what we're going to really look at today is the podcast.
We certainly are. And just to give people an understanding of how we know each other, well, we know each other because we knew each other virtually anyway, because we're connected to connected people, which is how it works, folks. But also we're both part of the She Means Business team, where we're working alongside Facebook and Enterprise Nation to get the message out about female business people and digital marketing. That's how we ended up in a room together, even though we were virtually in rooms all over the place. So it's a strange old world these days. So you've answered my first question, which was, what's the podcast called? But where can people find it?
Okay, so about 2 years ago, I was part of a business accelerator program with the Ulster Bank, or I think, what do you call the Ulster Bank in mainland UK? Can't remember. NatWest.
That I was going to say, is it NatWest? Yeah.
Yeah, business accelerator. The mentor that I had there said to me, "Oh, you should listen to this podcast." And I looked at him and I said, "What is a podcast? I don't know what you're talking about." And which is really funny because when you talk to Americans, everybody knows what a podcast is. So I went home that day and downloaded a podcast by a guy called Seth Godin, and I was completely hooked. So if you have an iPhone, you can access podcasts on iTunes. I have an Android phone, so I have an app called Podbean that I download and I listen to podcasts on. So you can find it on a podcasting app. You can also, podcasters also have their episodes on their own websites, and I have mine all on my website as well. So a podcast really is an audio recording. It's like a radio show that somebody's created themselves for people who don't really know what podcasts are, like me. Like, I just didn't know what it meant. And usually they're put out once a week. Some people do a daily show, which must take up so much of their time. But most people do a weekly show, and it's usually out at the same time every week. So you can get hold of my podcast on my website, socialbeeni.com, or you can find it on your podcasting app.
So you do one every week then, do you?
Yes. So I try to record them in advance, Kathy, in batches, because they go out every Monday morning. I actually outsource my engineering side to a guy called Chris at ST Mastering. He's fabulous. I have to send him my recording every Thursday. He then puts it all together and uploads it into the software that I use that pushes it out to the different podcasting apps. And it comes out on release every Monday morning.
I'm a huge believer in batching. in everything we do, from cooking to our marketing. So yeah, absolutely. I love to hear that, because that is something I talk to people about a lot. You can't do these things without planning, and you can't do them on the fly. So yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. So what sort of topics do you cover then?
So I cover, and I'm going to talk about more of the techie part, because I know I brushed over the techie part there a little, and we'll talk about more of that about later. So every podcast really should have a focus, and my focus is on helping, well, I have male and female listeners, but helping women really who are thinking about starting their own business or have their own business, and understanding it's about sharing the fact that actually everybody has very similar issues and challenges and hurdles. So I interview women, usually women who have been in a corporate career and left it to start their own business. And it's about recognizing the challenges that they might have had, the fact that they have wins and they have low points, and sharing those stories with people. I also have then the episodes where I will take an episode and maybe go through why you should be using Facebook to raise awareness of your business. I have where I deep dive into like explaining tech or explaining software or explaining something, but in a way that I don't patronize people. So it's more about simplifying the language for people and talking in a straightforward way about a topic. So it's a lot about starting your own business, growing the business you have, how to market that business. And then I have the on-air coaching calls, which I have to say I really love. And when I look at the statistics for the episodes that are most listened to, those are the ones that people like a lot, and where somebody comes on with an issue or a question, and I really walk them through how I can help them with that. So for example, this week, the episode that went out, it was with a lady called Ruth McCoubry, and she has facial aesthetics clinic in Northern Ireland, and which is basically where you get your Botox and your skin peels and all these things. And it was about how to grow her business and find more clients, and about email marketing to those clients. So Ruth came on, really talked about where her business came from. And then she asked me a couple of questions, and then I was able to walk her through as if we were doing a coaching call, which I do as well. I do one-to-ones online on Zoom. Mm-hmm. So as if I was coaching her through that, but we were recording it and putting it out on the podcast.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned something there, because you said about some of the technical side of things. And, you know, I have sent you some questions. I will admit that to people, but that's prompted something in my mind. Is you said that you send your stuff over to Chris and that he does his magic on it, and then it gets posted into all of the relevant places for you. Do you do these as a video then, and he strips out the audio, or how does that work?
Okay, so how it actually gets created is, so if I have guests lined up, I had somebody I recorded this week, and I like to record a couple of weeks so that I have them batched up in advance. So somebody will, it's literally from step to step. I have a scheduling tool called Acuity, and people book in a session. People ask me, can they come on the podcast? But they have to be the right person for my audience. I don't want people on who are just going to come on to sell their own business. It needs to be of value to the listeners. So someone books their appointment. I then send them a link, and I record it over Zoom. I have a friend who is a sound engineer in the BBC, and he told me that for quality purposes, it was better to record it with the video off. So I record it on Zoom with sound only. I close all my other windows on my laptop, so you're getting really the best. And this is where I have a software engineering background. The packets of data that go across the internet and in the sky or whatever, the quality is much better if I'm only sending packets of audio for recording, okay, back and forwards. So my recordings are all done over Zoom. And even if it was somebody who lived in my next street, I would still record it over Zoom. I don't go out with a microphone and interview somebody in the street, because I want a really good, clear sound quality. So when the recording is done, Zoom will save the audio file. Chris has a website that I go into and I upload. So I name the file. So because if you just sent them all Zoom links, he would know which one I was referring to. So I'll usually call it, so it's ruthmccoubry.mp4. I send that to Chris and I say, Chris, here is Ruth McCoubry's recording. We then have a shared Google spreadsheet where I have columns to fill in. And that says, what is the episode name? What's the episode number? What is the blurb that I want to go on the podcasting app? Yeah, I think that's everything. And I put links in there as well. So for Ruth, for example, she had a link to her email sign up. So we put that in there as well. So I sent that to Chris by Thursday at the latest. Then I filled in my spreadsheet, and I need to have that done by, he's quite good with me because if I just do that on Sunday morning, he's okay with that. He then has a recording of my introduction and it's called intro and the outro.
Oh, yes, I've heard that on your podcast. Yeah. That's really a lovely feed in to what you do.
So it's actually one of my best friends from school, Claire McCollum, who is a presenter on Songs of Praise, recorded my intro for me. So it's good to have friends.
A bit like Gloria Honeyford.
Yeah, she does, yes. So if you watch Songs of Praise, you'll recognise her next time you're watching. So she recorded that intro for me back at the very start. So Chris has that recording, and then he has the outro. He then puts it all together and clears out any blips that I might have. So say, for example, we had a coughing fit in the middle of it. I would just say, Chris, can you just check that? He makes sure the sound quality is good, puts it all together. He then uploads it to a platform called Libsyn.
Oh, yeah.
So Libsyn is the software that then feeds the podcast out to all the different places that people want to listen to it on. And he does that. So it's uploaded onto Libsyn, scheduled for, I think, like 3 or 4 in the morning on a Monday morning. So when I get up on a Monday morning, the podcast is there on the podcasting apps. But my work isn't finished because I need to create a blog post and graphics that go along with every single episode. And then the only way you get listeners on your podcast is by sharing them out across your social media. It's not like on Instagram where you might get suggested, or like on Facebook, you might get suggested pages to follow. So you very much, the podcasting apps don't suggest other people for you to listen to. Because you're listening to it on your phone, like if you went into iTunes, it might say there are similar podcasts like this down at the bottom. Yeah. But people are generally subscribed to podcasts on their phones and just listen to the ones that they know or that they've heard about. So that's really the tech from start to finish. And it takes a while. It takes quite a long time to put it all together. It's not I know when I started, I talked to a friend here who said, I want to do podcasting. And she jumped on one of the I'm looking at my phone, one of the podcasting apps, and hit record and uploaded it, and away it went. Well, it's like all of your marketing. You need to be consistent. You need to do it really in a methodical, consistent way in order to actually grow an audience. And it's slow and steady. I mean, I think, like I spoke yesterday to a client of mine, and she has a podcast in America called the Woolly Thistle podcast, and she has got 20 times the listeners I have, but she's been going 4 years. Right. It's also, I think you grow your podcast one person at a time. Somebody who listens to it then shares it with somebody else or suggests it in a Facebook group. Oh, I think you should listen to this podcast. But they say that it's almost like an exponential. So you go along and then it should go like this. This is the idea behind it, Kathy. But I love doing it. I love having a podcast. I listen to podcasts myself all the time. So it's a passion project as much as anything else. There's no revenue in it for me at all. There's no sponsorship. People who want to build a podcast to earn money, you make the money off raising your profile through your podcast. You would need to have tens of thousands of downloads of each episode in order to get any kind of sponsorship behind it. That's not a goal for me. It's I don't want sponsored ads in my podcast anyway. The goal is for people to see that I know what I'm talking about and to want to work with me on a one-to-one basis as a result of that.
I think that's something that we need to recognise in terms of everything that we're doing, is that it's about getting our message out to people that we want to get that message. Not necessarily that it's going to make us millions of pounds, and I think that's absolutely true. And for me, one of the things that I've spoken to people about podcasting as well is that, and you mentioned the fact that once you've done all of the techie stuff and Chris is doing his magic, what's happening at your end is that you're getting your blog post ready and your graphics and all of that kind of stuff. Is that it is a way of blogging without blogging.
Yes,
in that sense. So
it is my weekly content creation on the website if I don't have time to blog. That's right.
Yeah. So, and I think I work quite a lot with people whose first language may not be English, or who feel a bit reticent about their written style. Mm-hmm. So this is just another thing that could do that. So